Before you think your garden is failing because of poor soil, bad seeds, or lack of rain, let me tell you something quietly but honestly, right now, there are tiny guests living in your garden that you didn't invite. They don't make noise. They don't show up all at once. They don't even destroy things overnight. Welcome to Garden's Heaven. If you're new here, this is a calm place for people who love growing food, herbs, and healing plants without spending unnecessary money or fighting nature. And if you're returning, you already know we don't do complicated gardening here. We do simple, smart, and practical solutions that actually work in real gardens. Today's video is for anyone who has planted something valuable, something uncommon, something worth protecting, and then watched it struggle without understanding why. We're talking about 7 pests you probably already have in your garden, not the popular ones everyone talks about, but the quiet destroyers that target crops most gardeners overlook, crops that are actually worth growing if you know how to protect them. Before we go any further, take a moment to like this video. It tells YouTube that calm, practical garden knowledge still matters. Subscribe to Garden's Heaven if you want to grow smarter, not harder, and if you've ever lost a plant and wondered what really went wrong, drop a comment saying still learning, so I know you're part of this journey with us. Number 1 is a pest most gardeners mistake for a harmless leaf problem, and that's exactly why it causes so much damage before anyone reacts. Leaf miners. If you grow crops like Malabar spinach, roselle, or even young Swiss chard, this pest loves them. You won't see holes at first. Instead, you'll notice thin winding lines inside the leaf, almost like someone drew a map under the surface. What's happening is that the insect larva is living inside the leaf tissue itself, feeding between the layers where sprays and rain can't easily reach. The plant still looks green from a distance. So many people ignore it, but inside, the leaf is slowly losing its ability to photosynthesize properly. As the infestation grows, the leaves start looking tired even when the soil is fine and water is enough. Growth slows down, new leaves come out smaller, and the plant begins to struggle quietly. On crops like Malabar spinach, that rely on healthy leaves for continuous harvest, this pest can reduce your yield without ever killing the plant outright. That's the trick. It doesn't destroy fast. It drains value over time. And because the damage is internal, many gardeners wrongly add fertilizer, thinking the plant is hungry, when in reality, the pest is eating the leaf from the inside out. The solution doesn't require chemicals or expensive treatments. The first thing is observation and early action. Once you see those lines, remove and destroy the affected leaves immediately. Don't compost them. This breaks the life cycle before the larvae mature. Next, encourage natural predators by avoiding harsh sprays and keeping your garden diverse. A simple neem leaf or neem oil solution, applied lightly to new growth, helps discourage adult insects from laying eggs. Most importantly, don't wait. Leaf miners are easiest to control when they're still few, and once you train your eyes to spot them early, you'll protect crops that many gardeners give up on too soon. Number 2 is a pest that hides so well, it often gets blamed on heat stress or poor watering. And that's aphids, especially the dark and pale green ones that attack crops like jute mallow, African eggplant leaves, and young roselle plants. These pests don't chew holes. They gather in clusters along tender stems and under new leaves, quietly sucking sap from the plant. Because the damage is gradual, gardeners often assume the plant is just adjusting or growing slowly, not realizing its strength is being drained day by day. As aphids feed, the leaves begin to curl slightly, not dramatically at first, just enough to look a bit tired. New growth becomes soft, twisted, and weak. What makes aphids especially dangerous is not just the sap loss, but what they leave behind. A sticky substance called honeydew coats the leaves, attracting ants and encouraging black sooty mold. Once this mold appears, sunlight is blocked, photosynthesis drops, and the plant starts declining even faster. At this stage, many gardeners panic and start spraying random mixtures, which often kills helpful insects and makes the problem return stronger. Controlling aphids is about balance, not force. The simplest method is to wash them off with a steady stream of water early in the morning, repeating this every few days. Follow this with a mild neem oil or soap solution. Applied gently under the leaves, where aphids hide. If ants are present, deal with them too, because ants protect aphids in exchange for honeydew. Once the ants are gone, natural predators like lady beetles can do their work. When handled early and calmly, aphids stop being a disaster and become just another manageable part of the garden. Number 3 is a pest many gardeners never see until the damage is already done, and that's cutworms. They are especially destructive to crops like amaranth, young moringa alternatives such as chaya, and newly transplanted fluted pumpkin seedlings. During the day, everything looks fine. At night, these pests come out from the soil and cut young plants at the base, leaving them collapsed by morning. Because the leaves are still fresh and green, people often think animals or strong wind caused the damage, not realizing an insect is working silently underground. What makes cutworms dangerous is their timing. They attack at the most vulnerable stage of the plant's life, right after transplanting or when seedlings are just establishing roots. One night is enough to wipe out days or weeks of effort. The soil may look healthy, moisture levels are fine, yet plants keep falling over without warning. Since cutworms hide in the top layer of soil during the day, many gardeners never connect the problem to an insect, especially if they've never dug around the base of the plant. The solution is simple and surprisingly effective. Protect the base of young plants with physical barriers, like cardboard collars, cut plastic bottles, or even thick paper wrapped around the stem and pushed slightly into the soil. This alone can stop cutworms completely. Keeping the garden clean of weeds and plant debris also reduces hiding spots. If you suspect an infestation, gently dig around the soil near damaged plants in the evening and remove the worms by hand. Once the seedlings grow thicker stems, cutworms lose their advantage, and the garden stabilizes again without chemicals or extra cost. Number 4 is a pest that many gardeners confuse with dust or harmless insects, and that's spider mites. They are especially fond of crops like roselle, tree spinach, and young jute mallow grown in dry or stressed conditions. At first glance, the leaves just look dull, slightly faded, or speckled with tiny yellow dots. There are no big holes, no dramatic damage, so people often ignore it. But underneath the leaves, these tiny pests are multiplying fast, sucking moisture directly from plant cells, and weakening the plant from the inside. As the infestation grows, the leaves begin to lose their rich green color and take on a dusty, tired look. Fine webbing may appear, especially where leaves meet the stem, but this usually happens after serious damage has already started. Spider mites thrive in hot, dry environments, which means they often appear when gardeners think the weather is the real problem. The plant stops growing properly, leaves may dry up at the edges, and yields drop quietly. On valuable leafy crops, this can turn a productive plant into a weak one, without ever killing it outright. The key to controlling spider mites is changing the environment, not fighting aggressively. Increase humidity around the plants by lightly misting leaves with water, especially in the early morning. Regularly rinse the undersides of leaves to physically remove the mites. A gentle neem oil solution applied carefully under the leaves helps break their life cycle. Most importantly, avoid letting plants stay stressed for long periods. Healthy, well-watered plants resist spider mites far better, and once conditions improve, these pests often disappear on their own. Before we continue, let me pause you right here for a moment. If any of these pests already sound familiar, that means this video is doing its job. And if you've ever walked into your garden confused, wondering why a healthy plant suddenly looks tired for no clear reason, you're exactly who this channel is for. Take a second to like this video. It helps Gardens Heaven reach more people who are trying to grow valuable crops without wasting money on chemicals that don't work. Subscribe if you want simple, calm garden knowledge that actually saves your plants, not just theories. And I'd really like to hear from you, so drop a comment telling me which pest you've struggled with the most, or which crop in your garden means the most to you right now. Let's get back into it. Number 5 is a pest that many gardeners never suspect because the damage shows up below the soil, and that's root knot nematodes. These pests are especially harmful to crops like African spinach, sunchoke, and even young roselle plants. Above ground, the plant looks weak, pale, and slow growing. No matter how much you water or feed it, leaves may yellow slightly, and the plant never really takes off. Because nothing obvious is happening on the leaves, most gardeners blame poor soil or bad seeds. The real problem is happening underground. These microscopic worms invade the roots and cause swelling and knots that block water and nutrient uptake. When roots can't function properly, the plant slowly starves even in rich soil. Pulling up an affected plant reveals swollen, deformed roots that look unhealthy. By the time this is noticed, the pest has often spread to nearby plants, making it feel like the entire garden is failing at once. The best control method focuses on prevention and soil health. Rotate crops regularly and avoid planting the same type of crop in the same spot season after season. Incorporate organic matter like compost to encourage beneficial soil organisms that naturally suppress nematodes. Solarizing the soil during hot periods by covering it with clear plastic can also reduce their numbers. Once you understand that not all pests are visible, you start protecting your garden from the ground up, which is where real success begins. Number 6 is a pest that often gets blamed on leaf disease, and that's thrips. They are especially attracted to crops like roselle, lemongrass seedlings, and young tree spinach. The damage starts very subtly. Leaves develop a silvery or bronze shine, almost like they've been rubbed with ash or fine dust. There are no clear holes, no chewing marks, just a strange discoloration that makes the plant look stressed even when everything else seems right. Because of this, many gardeners waste time treating for fungi or nutrient problems, while the pest continues feeding. Thrips damage the plant by scraping the surface of the leaf and sucking out the contents of the cells. Over time, this weakens the plant's ability to grow and recover. New leaves may come out smaller, curled, or distorted, and flowering crops may drop buds before opening. On valuable plants like roselle, this means fewer harvestable calices and weaker overall growth. Thrips also spread plant viruses, which makes their presence even more dangerous than the visible damage suggests. Control starts with breaking their comfort zone. Thrips thrive in dry, dusty conditions, so keeping plants well watered and gently rinsing leaves reduces their numbers. Sticky traps placed near plants help monitor and reduce adults. A mild neem oil spray applied in the early morning can discourage feeding and egg laying without harming beneficial insects. The key is early action. Once thrips are controlled, plants often recover quickly, reminding you how resilient gardens can be when the real problem is finally addressed. Number 7 is a pest many gardeners unknowingly protect instead of control, and that's ants. On their own, ants don't usually cause direct damage to crop like African spinach, roselle, or jute mallow. That's why they're often ignored or even tolerated. You see them moving up and down stems, around the soil, and across leaves, and it feels harmless. But ants are rarely in your garden by accident. When they settle around a plant, it's usually because something more damaging is already there. What ants are really doing is farming other pests, especially aphids, and sometimes scale insects. They protect these sap-sucking pests from predators and move them from plant to plant in exchange for the sweet honeydew they produce. This means even if you wash off aphids or spray lightly, ants can bring them right back. Over time, this relationship weakens plants continuously. Leaves curl, growth slows, and sticky residue builds up, attracting mold. Many gardeners fight aphids again and again, without realizing the ants are the real reason the problem never ends. The solution is to break the partnership. Start by stopping ants from accessing the plant. Simple barriers, like sticky bands around stems, ash, or even petroleum jelly on a strip of cloth, can block their movement. Reduce aphid populations at the same time using gentle water sprays or neem solutions. Once ants lose their food source, they leave on their own. When ants disappear, natural predators return, and suddenly the garden feels balanced again. This is one of those small changes that creates a big difference, especially in gardens growing crops that are truly worth the effort. If you've stayed with me this far, then you already understand something many gardeners never realize. Most garden problems don't come from bad luck or poor effort. They come from small signs we're taught to ignore. Tiny marks on leaves, slight changes in color, a plant that just feels slower than it should. Once you learn to read those signs, gardening stops being frustrating and starts becoming calm and predictable. What matters most is not fighting every insect, but understanding which ones are quietly taking value from your garden and how to stop them without spending money you don't need to spend. The crops we talked about today aren't common for a reason. They reward attention. They respond quickly when the real problem is addressed. And when you protect them properly, they give back more than most popular crops ever will. If this video helped you see your garden differently, subscribe to Gardens Heaven so you don't miss what's coming next. Like the video, it reaches other gardeners who are struggling in silence, and leave a comment telling me which pest surprised you the most, or which plant you're growing that you want to protect better. Until next time, keep your garden calm, observant, and growing.